The New York Knicks booked their spot in the second round, and with it, they booked an ass whooping from the Boston Celtics. Boston had been waiting on this, getting some extra rest. New York had the extra game because they shit the bed against Detroit on a closeout game, and they had to play again last night. Now we know that it's Knicks Celtics. I'm really excited for that matchup in terms of just like the fan interaction, the atmosphere, what we're going to see through, like, when you can feel it through the TV when they're at MSG. And of course, the Celtics have made New York their bitch for the entire regular season. They've whooped them every time they've played. I think that when you look at the overall talent level, it's quite fair to be like Boston are going to have the best one or two guys in the series before you even get down to Jaylen Brunson. And I think we'll list those in a moment. But before we go any further, I'm your boy Adam Taylor. You can find me over at USA Today, over at SB Nation, and of course the Celtics Chronicle newsletter. Hit that link below. And I'm joined by my homie, compadre, co-host in crime, Mr. Billy Calabrese. Billy, how you feeling about this matchup?
Round two, baby. Round two.
Yeah,
I am
baby.
loving this.
I know you were looking at the betting odds, right? So what's the betting saying? Before we even start talking, like what are the numbers? What are the odds?
I mean, it is. Vegas is predicting a massacre here. It's the Celtics are minus 900 for the series. I mean, you'd have to bet $900 just to win 100. And then most of the series bets are in 4 games or 5 is really where pretty much everyone is leaning. And this is such a Jayson Tatum series. Jayson Tatum has averaged more points per game against the Knicks than any other team in the league besides the Cavs. So those are the two teams that, ironically, we are really expecting to face. Obviously, we're going to face one coming up in round two. But it's great that those are series that Jayson Tatum just excels at with those matchups. So it's gonna be really, really fun for us.
Interesting one for me is I've been looking at teams' defensive 3-point frequency, and I know that's like a metaphor. And the reason I'm looking at this is because the Celtics are coming up against a bunch of teams throughout the postseason. A lot of the teams that they face are going to be teams that excel in taking away 3-point shots. And if you look at the way the Magic did it coming into this, the first round, the Magic were first in the NBA for defensive 3-point frequency. They allowed the least amount of 3-point attempts out of any team in the NBA. And I think we saw the Celtics kind of struggle with that a little bit. I've got the numbers from an article I did earlier this week. I'm just pulling them up real quick. Where it was, okay, so the Celtics took 37 attempts in game one, 37 attempts, these are all 3-point attempts, 37 attempts in game two, 27 in game three, 31 in game four, and 24 in game five. Those are all really low attempts for Boston. Well, considering Joe Mazzulla has that like 53 point attempts per night as a magic number. Celtics shot 43.2% from deep in game one, 32.4% from deep in game two, 33.3% in game three, 29% in game four, and then they went nuclear in game five and shot 54%. And that most of that came in the second half because they couldn't really buy a bucket from deep in the first half in game five. And now they're coming up against the Knicks team that ranks 6th in the NBA for defensive 3-point frequency. One thing New York does really well is take away the 3-point line. Not as good as what Miami does it, but New York also has a lot more offensive firepower in terms of being able to crack you in the mouth once they generate a turnover or whatnot. I think OG Anunoby has taken his game to another level since like the last couple of weeks of the season, and that's flowed into the into the postseason. Mikal Bridges is playing really well defensively right now. So is Josh Hart. So when you look at what the Celtics had to go through against Orlando, and then now they're coming into this series against New York, having already had to find other ways to win rather than just firing away from deep consistently. I do wonder whether the Knicks defense or perimeter-based defense, which is kind of where they shine, is even going to be a problem, because if you've learned and figured out how to break down Orlando, New York isn't really going to pose that same type of threat, that physicality. Even if they try and be physical, Boston have just dealt with that. And to me, that puts the Celtics at a major advantage coming into this series, just because they've already figured out ways to win without needing to fire away from deep.
Yeah, I thought what we learned in the Orlando series was the Celtics' kryptonite isn't 3-point attempts. Obviously, that's our bread and butter. But the reason why we do, you can limit that. We can find other ways to win. But the way you beat the Celtics is you get them to turn the ball over. And turnovers are actually our kryptonite. And the way Orlando forced turnovers, I just don't see the Knicks having that same kind of success. So I really do think that it's going to be a offensive explosion for the Celtics. They're going to feel like, like the floodgates have opened going from Orlando's defense to the Knicks defense.
I do wonder whether we see more post up as well. We saw a lot of post up offense in the Magic series. That was actually one of the shot attempts that went up, right? If you look at regular season shot attempts versus postseason shot attempts, or regular season play type frequency versus postseason play type frequency, post up offense went up, and that was both in terms of post creation, post scoring. I mean, there was games where Jayson Tatum just looked unguardable in that on that mid block. There was games where the Celtics were able to just generate as many mismatches for KP as they wanted. The Knicks are 10th in the NBA, 12th in the regular season. Let's go with regular season. They're 12th in the NBA for mid-range defensive field goal percentage, holding teams to 42.7% shooting in the mid-range. I just think when you look at, as you said, when the Celtics 3-point attempts isn't really the kryptonite that people think it is for Boston. And I think you've really hit that point like right on the head, because when you look at taking away the 3-point line, you can focus on this Celtics team having, I'd say, about 5 multi-level scorers. I think, and a multi-level scorer just means you could score at the rim, or the mid-range, or the 3-point line. If you're a 2-level scorer, you can score from 2 of those areas. If you're a 3-level scorer, you can score at every point. And I think when you look at Jaylen, Jayson, Kristaps, Drew, Derek, even Peyton Pritchard at this point, they're all 3-level scorers. Sam Hauser's developed into a 2-level scorer. There's so many multi-layered scoring talents on this team that you can take away the 3-point line and still get smoked. And I think that the Knicks are going to find that out pretty quickly. And I'd argue in game 1, we probably see Boston destroy them in the mid-range and at the rim rather than from deep.
Yeah, and I'm really not scared of their ball pressure either. I know they have the great wing defenders, but they're one of the teams that don't really pick up until half court anyway. So we're not going to have the struggle bringing the ball up that we did without Drew in that Orlando series, because Orlando loves to pressure the ball up top. And that was another thing I worried about with Detroit, because they had a lot of success doing kind of the same thing. They pick up the ball pressure early, and it really makes teams have to think fast and forces a lot of turnovers.
The only flip side to that is when you don't pick up the ball early, your half-court defense is far more easier to get set. So you're attacking a set defense more frequently than you are when a team's trying to adjust to pick up points, play high pressure defense, and it's the court's more spread open. New York will compact the floor a bit more now because that's the way they like it. It's very much a half court defense. I don't think they'll play with high pickup points towards the logo or anything like that. But that's a challenge in itself, especially when you look at Anunoby and Bridges as 2 elite wing defenders that are really going to be trying to pose problems for Jaylen and Jayson. Neither of those guys are at 100% coming into this series. You've got the concerns over Jaylen's knee, which for me, game 5 should end those concerns anyway, but they're still going to linger. And then obviously you've got Tatum's wrist. So I think that this could be a series where you need to lean on guard play a little bit more. Or you need to lean on Porzingis to stretch the floor, because Cat's not really going to allow himself to get dragged out onto the perimeter too often because it's too easy to smoke him that way. It's going to be really interesting to see how that half-court defense differs in terms of how Boston looks to execute their actions, how quickly they look to get into those actions, and most importantly, what actions they're trying to run. But for me, it's very much if they're taking away Tatum scoring or they're taking away the drive, it's finding ways to counter that. Maybe we see Tatum lean into being a playmaker more. Maybe we see Jaylen become more of an off-ball guy. But it does feel like this might be a series where you're attacking guards more, especially like hunting Brunson and stuff. I think Drew Holiday, if healthy, could have a massive, massive impact.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning too, because I think this is going to be the return to the killer whale offense that we really couldn't take advantage of in the first series, because you have 2 liabilities on the court pretty much at the whole time, especially the way Tibbs plays them heavy minutes. So you got either whoever's Cat's guarding and whoever Brunson's guarding. They just are going to have the green light to go at them.
Do you expect to see any double big from New York? I know there was talk of it when Mitchell Robinson came back from injury that, Towns had a lot of success playing next to Rudy Gobert last year. And Robinson's going to give you the same, but he's more of an athletic lob threat, more of a weak side roaming type threat if you need him that way. They haven't really lent on that much, but I do think that the way the Celtics play, especially with how frequently Mazzulla likes to go to a double big lineup, that if Tibbs wants to match that, I'd actually be concerned about that. And I know we saw some of that in the last time New York and Boston matched up. Tibbs did go double big for a minute, and it did have some success for them.
It was a completely different series, but the fact that they didn't do it that much in the Pistons series and Mitchell Robinson was kind of an afterthought, especially against Duren, who just kind of ate his lunch. Jalen Duren had a pretty good series overall, but especially on those Mitchell Robinson possessions that it just kind of was like a green light for him. He was really physical, and it just didn't look like the same Mitchell Robinson that was being compared to Time Lord in the last couple of years. I don't know if it's the injuries or he's just still not 100%, but I don't think that's a factor just because honestly, Mitchell Robinson he's a decent big in the league. He's not even, he's not a threat. He gives you nothing on offense, and his defense, he's not the rim protector that his reputation would give him.
Yeah, I think that the bonus of having him in there next to Cat is that it allows Cat to be a little bit less of a target defensively, because if you hunt him, you've still got a rim protector behind him. Whole point of targeting Cat in switches and on the pick and roll is to bring him away from the rim. Just the same way you'd attack any drop defense, right? You want to bring him away from the rim so then you can either score in the mid range, find somebody cutting towards the basket, whatever it may be. But if you go double big, then you kind of remove some of the concern behind Cat's defense there. And I think that was always Minnesota's play with Rudy, was like, yeah, you can target Cat, but it's not going to take away the rim protection. And that all of a sudden negates a massive reason of why you would try and target Cat in the first place. Obviously, you can still go after Brunson, but just when we're talking about two defensive liabilities, adding Robinson into that rotation for stretches does alleviate some of the concerns in the way you can attack Taz.
Yeah, I'm really curious of how Tibbs is going to play that. I mean, is he going to play drop on those? I mean, obviously we're going to go do our go-tos when Tatum's setting up at the top of the key with those pick and pops, those pick and, especially when Cornette's the one setting the screens. Are they going to come up on Tatum and then we're going to have Lob City? I'm really curious how Tibbs is going to play those.
Yeah, it's going to be tough because that's the point, right? Like, do you go double big so when you do step up, you still have a rim protector down there? Do you kind of do what Orlando did in a sense and make sure that you've constantly got free bodies in the vicinity of the ball so you can pinch in and take away? The Celtics do a lot of that too, a lot of gap help, a lot of secondary ball pressure. Or do you try and play guys straight up and trust that you're not going to get destroyed on mismatches and on switches? And that's kind of the test for New York. It's also a test for Boston. I think that the Celtics found a lot of good ways to generate offense throughout the series against Orlando because Mosley went to so many different defensive looks. There was games where they were switching everything. This is Orlando. There's games where they switched everything. There's games where they rejected switches and tried to stay on their man. There was games where they pushed up high, games where they sagged off a little bit more. Orlando tried a bunch of different defensive coverages and the Celtics continually found ways to win. So whether they can do that again against New York with different personnel, I think Josh Hart's going to have a big role to play as just like a disruptor, kind of like that dude that really pisses you off, that Marcus Smart role. And I'll be interested to see how the Celtics deal with that as well, because they don't really have a guy like that anymore.
No, that's the one guy that I really think could make, like, say for example, Pritchard's life hell. That's the kind of one worry I have is those, he can get kind of physical with them, and that's when Pritchard tends to disappear. But if he's stuck on a Jaylen, if he's stuck even, he has to switch on to Tatum, then that's when it's going to be barbecue chicken. But the thing about this series, we're going to need a much better KP series. We had the post-up frequency so high with him in the Orlando series, and he was so bad. His shooting dropped just drastically. I know he got his forehead busted open.
And that's when it all went wrong for him, though, right? Like when his head got smashed, that's when he was like, I don't want none of the smoke, dude.
No, that was like an ECW kind of bleeding. So, I mean, that was pretty extreme. I'm really worried about him because he has to have a good series. Like, he cannot have a repeat of the Orlando performances.
And I think it's worth remembering that outside of that, like, game one in the NBA Finals last year, we didn't really see Porzingis in the postseason. So this is our first real taste of what KP does in a playoff scenario. And it was very easy to kind of look at that one game sample size. I know we played a few games during the postseason, but it's that game one, that NBA Finals moment that he had that stands out to everybody. But it's very easy to look at that one game sample size and be like, yo, Porzingis was fantastic. He's going to be such a factor in the postseason. This is our first real taste of how he performs. And clearly Orlando found a way to take him off his game. They got underneath his hips a lot. They were really physical with him. They never let him really set his feet. He tried to control his space in the post-up, where if you ever watch Porzingis on a post-up, you watch his footwork. He likes to step under his man. So when his man's defending, you'll always see Porzingis put his foot in between his defender's legs and through the body. And the reason you do that is because once your foot goes in between the legs and underneath their body, that is now your space. So you can get physical to create that separation without risking a foul. It's just a way of creating more ownership over the space that you're in and being able to generate off the bump without risking being called. When Porzingis was doing that, no one was moving. He couldn't move guys because Orlando was so strong and athletically gifted that unless it was a mismatch, he wasn't really getting that extra little half a second of space to release the shot. And even when he did generate that space, there was always someone rotating over to him that could bother him either behind or from the side. I don't think New York are gonna send as much help to Porzingis that way. I think they're gonna trust that Towns can bother him just due to his size and his height. I think they're going to trust that whoever he's switched on to is going to be able to hold their own. The only time I think they send help is if it's Brunson, right? And I think that, Brunson's going to be put in a world of problems all throughout this series. But KP to me is a big swing factor because if he can get it cooking from deep, especially from deep, then it's going to pose questions to Towns that I don't think the Knicks have the answers to right now.
Yeah, and that's really where I'm kind of at. I think that's where the floor gets risen so much more if it's a good KP versus what we've seen lately. Because besides that, then it's going to have to be a Tatum series. And we know he can do it. He's had 3 straight games in the playoffs of over 35 plus points. But he's going to have to do that, plus probably most of the playmaking, plus be great on defense if KP's not KP.
And the weird thing is he didn't have to do the scoring aspect of that last season because Brown's knee wasn't as big of a concern, right? But everything else, Tatum did last year. He carried the load of... And I mean, he still led the team in scoring during the postseason last year. He led them in every statistical category. So it's not like he's not capable, and it's not like that hasn't been a role he's had to shoulder for multiple years at this point. So I'm not concerned about Tatum in the slightest. He's played with wrist injuries before. It's not an issue to me at all. I just think that the whole point in having Porzingis there is to lighten that load, especially in the earlier rounds. So Tatum's got more in the gas tank as you get deeper into the postseason, and you do need to rely on him a little bit more. I also think that Porzingis hitting from deep just opens up so much elsewhere on the floor in terms of spacing, in terms of actions, that you kind of need him to be 35 to 40% per game, but like get a little bit of a heater early, just so you've got those secondary cutting actions that are more available. If you look at the way Orlando were at times, they were basically face guarding shooters in the corners, and they weren't helping off. So Sam Hauser had a really tough series against Orlando. Peyton Pritchard had a bit of a tough series. Derek White found ways to create space later in the series, but it wasn't easy for shooters against them. I don't think the Knicks are going to be so willing to stay home on shooters and face guard them that way. So I think that Porzingis might find extra space on pick and pops or on like short rolls and stuff, just because the Knicks are going to be in rotation a lot more than what we saw Orlando. Orlando trusted their guys to guard you one-on-one. The Knicks can't do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of hoping, because for whatever reason, as great as it sounds on paper, KP catching the ball at the nail is just not as effective as him getting it deep or him getting it way out, like way deep in the three-point line or way closer to the basket. When he gets it at the nail and he has to shoot over the guy, and a lot of time they put a smaller guy that kind of gets in his gut, that always bothers him. I remember Marcus Smart used to guard him like that and just get right in his stomach, and it would always give him a problem trying to shoot over him. I just would rather have him either way outside or way inside. That catching at the nail and letting him like kind of just work out, I did not like that in the Orlando series.
I think if you're gonna feed KP at the nail, it should be it should be designed to create rather than score, right? I think there's a world where you can run DHOs through Porzingis at the nail or at the elbow, and have somebody cutting off a screen and then getting downhill off a off a shuffle cut, picking up that DHO and then being an explosive threat. You can run Jaylen Brown in places like that, or you have KP kind of get the ball at the nail, somebody cuts off ball like on the wing and starts a 45 cut, and then KP finds them with an entry pass. There's ways that KP's height can be valuable at the nail in terms of being a playmaker, in terms of just allowing actions to unfold around him, whether that's DHO, whether that's back cuts, whatever. I just think that, as you said, if you want him scoring, I'd rather it be in that like mid to low post or on the perimeter. Around that nail, on the elbow, I'm okay with it, but I'd much rather that lead to somebody else scoring that's more effective as an explosive cutter, or more effective coming off a flare screen, and KP just hits them for the catch and shoot, right? So I'm not too upset if he gets the ball in those areas. It's more along the lines of what you do with it once you have the ball. And I think that the Celtics offense plays at such an early clock high tempo anyway, that you've got plenty of time to run a set to get somebody to rock, and KP just racks up assists that way. Because if KP is at the nail, you're going to bring out the big, and now there's some extra space around the baseline that you can attack, some extra space under the rim. You force some collapses, some driving kicks come out of it from there. So many things can happen just by having KP be a playmaker around that like long mid-range area.
Yeah, and I thought that's what made him so much more effective last year when he led the league in post-up efficiency. It wasn't all this crap at the nail. It was a lot of deep post-ups. It was a lot more just, it's where his comfort zone is. I don't know if maybe they just, it's the way he's being covered now. People know where his spots are, so they're trying to move him up. But either way, if we can get some of that efficient KP back, this is going to be a short series.
I'd like to see a lot of, there's two types of screens that KP could really thrive off this series, and that's a wedge screen, which is just a back screen set diagonally to get a player into a post, or a slice screen, which is just a back screen again, but on the wings, once again designed to get a player into the post. The point is, if you can run screening actions that gets KP into the post, and then you feed him in that mid-post area on a mismatch because he's come off a screen and the Knicks will switch it, now, and then you run inverted screens, so you're putting it, Brunson's the one being switched onto him. Now you're cooking with gas, and I think KP could have a huge impact. If not, and it's more perimeter-based, then yeah, I think that you need to start letting him lean into some playmaking, because he has shown that he can be a really good passer when needed.
That's what I'm hoping to see, is a little more playmaking from him, because that's been non-existent in this past series.
Yeah, I mean, blood in your eyes, you can't really see much. I know that was only one game, but it is what it is, right? I will say this as well. I'm expecting another big series from Horford. I just think that dude's found another gear. He really wants that second championship. With that, though, I know there's a few days left, so we're going to have a lot of time to talk Knicks. We can probably try and bring on some guys that cover the Knicks or whatever it may be. But with that, I'm going to wrap it up by saying, let's do that quick little breakdown of who we think is where each player ranks in terms of talent for best player in the series. We're going to do top 5. So the top 5, and then we're going to see which team. In fact, no, we'll go by position. Yes, top 5. We'll see which team has the most talent in terms of position. So,
okay,
best guard in the series, best point guard in the series, I'm going to say it's Jaylen Brunson.
Yeah, that's more than fair.
Best 2 guard in the series, I'm going to say it's Derek White.
Yeah, I'd rather have Derek White than Josh Hart. Some people would probably rather have Josh Hart, but I mean, Derek White's worked miracles on us, so yeah.
Best small forward in the series, I'm going to go with Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, that's a lot. I don't think Bridges has shown anything that he can be in, or OG, I should say, is probably their 3 technically, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as Boston, right? It's interchangeable who you put at the 3 and who you put at the 4. Best power forward, best 4, it's going to be Tatum. I think that's unequivocal. And then best 5 is, I think, where it gets spicy, right? Like, do you go Towns or do you go KP? I think Towns is the best shooting big man in the NBA. I think he's also a way better rebounder than what Porzingis is. Porzingis is a better rim protector, but he's also less consistent. So I'm going to lean Towns here, actually, to be fair.
Yeah, we have to lean Towns here. I think Towns is actually the best player on the Knicks.
Yeah.
I think he's arguably the best shooting big ever. I know he likes to think he is, but I mean, a lot of the statistics back it up. Defensively, yeah, he's a traffic cone. There are a lot of problems with his game, but offense is not one of them. And if they're going to have any chance in this series, he's going to have to be big every single night.
So positionally, the Celtics have a one position advantage. They've got the best best 2, 3, and 4. Knicks have got the best 1 and 5. If we rank them in order of talent, for me, it goes Tatum, Brown, Towns, Brunson, and then you put White if we're just doing these 5. But obviously, you can throw Drew Holiday in there, whatever you want to do. But what I'm saying is the Celtics have the 2 best players in this series. And when you've got the 2, most teams win when they've got the best player in the series. When you've got the best 1 and 2, you should be dominating. So Celtics in 5 for me.
Celtics in 5. I'm in the same boat. I do think we have the better depth as well. Their bench is like non-existent. I know Campaign had like one great game in the Pistons series, but that's not normal. Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, Luke Cornett. I mean, Al Horford. We're just a way deeper team. I know depth doesn't matter to Tibbs because he's not going to play him anyway. He's only going to play his starters. But I do think it is going to matter in this series because the Knicks are already tired. They're already beat up, and we should be able to run right over them.
With that said, everybody, Celtics in 5. We'll be back tomorrow because we're back on our bullshit. Everyone, make sure you hit that subscribe, that like button, head over to the Celtics Chronicles, subscribe over there, and we will catch you tomorrow. Peace.
Peace.